Hello and welcome to another episode of Speak Greasy. My guest today is the person who was responsible for bringing Starbucks to India. He's been with the Tata Group for the last 24 years and is now tasked with growing the brand from its current 400-odd stores to about 1,000 stores in the next 4 years. Welcome to the show, Sushant. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
So, Starbucks is such a household name around the world. It's one of those quintessential brands that, wherever you go, you're going to get the same thing that you're familiar with. And, that's not an easy thing to achieve. Tell me today, what is the USP of Starbucks?
I think the USP of Starbucks still remains at the core what I think Howard said at some point of time, that people come to Starbucks for the coffee, but they stay back for the connection. And I think that's what's most important about Starbucks. I think at the heart of what we do obviously is coffee. And you hence ensure that you get the best coffee. We sell the top 3% Arabica, specialty coffee. You then have the art of making the coffee through our partners. But I think what is more important than any of them is the whole third piece. It's about the experience. It is about the connection. What we say in Starbucks is you are not a token number like you are in any other QSR. And I know it's a thing of a lot of memes, but we call out your name and we ask for your name. And I think that makes a connection.
So human connection. Come back to that aspect of, this, the people part of this business, right? But let's talk a little bit about the competitive landscape. So firstly, I think your biggest competition in India today is chai. How does that sort of play out for you? And what was the thought process when you were launching Starbucks in India?
I've sold tea for a majority of my career as an individual, and coffee. But you're right. If I look at just the numbers, and I might be a little dated, but tea is 25,000 crores in terms of retail value. Coffee is 2,500 crores. So tea is 10 times. Tea penetration is 90% plus. Coffee penetration in home is 12, 13%, 14% if you look at the best estimate. Even if you look at cafe consumption, even amongst the affluent class, it's around 24, 25%. We are talking of the top 18 million people. So it's small as compared to tea. I think when we opened Starbucks, we were clear about it, that you're creating a category. It is not about brand share gain. It is not that the market exists and you're trying to gain from others. It's about creating the market. And I think we have done a good job in the last 12 years in terms of creating this market, in terms of we now see the amount of interest in the last 2 years. You talked about the competitive landscape. The fact that there are so many players, be it the international names, be it the VC-backed guys, Indian names, or even at the lower end of the market is exploding in terms of the cafe market, as also the retail market in terms of D2C. If you go to Insta, every third brand is trying to sell you coffee. So that just shows that there is a market out there today and the market is growing. We do know that the market is growing at 12, 14% CAGR. So there's a huge potential.
Today it seems counterintuitive that, America wasn't always a coffee drinking market, but apparently back in the 80s, the idea of going and getting your morning, hit was not a, part of the culture there. And it was really something that, Howard Schultz basically created, and we went through something similar, I think, when we opened the table, not in terms of restaurants as such. Obviously, people would go out to eat. But of course, today, the amount people are going out to eat is very different from 14 years ago. And I think that the one thing that I learned is that when you're trying to build a market or, create that, it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of money. Is that something that you've also found in terms of the process?
As you rightly said, in India, when people come to a Starbucks, at least in the initial days, they did not come there for the coffee. So it was not like it was, I'm going there for my caffeine fix. Like, let's say it happens in the US or in the West, where you walk in the morning before going to the office, or in between you walk in to pick up your, 3 or 4 times. So it's not like I do that. It's not a routine.
Yeah.
I get my caffeine fix from my kadak chai, right? At home, in the morning, evening, or from my roadside hot tea shop.
Yeah.
In terms of if I am in office. I go to a Starbucks because it's an occasion, right? because I want to catch up with a friend, I have a meeting, or it is an indulgence if I have a birthday, or so the reasons are very different as to why people started going to a Starbucks. Over a period of time, we are trying to make it into a habit, which is why for the first 9 to 10 years, even if you see our growth rate, we were restricted primarily to the metros or the mini metros. We were, even till 3 years back, when I came in and to this current role, we were maybe in 14, 15 cities, and our number was around 200, 220. But that is when we started seeing the potential and we started feeling that there is a growth and this market will grow. And we were pretty confident that over the next 10, 12 years, there is a huge potential. So if you look at what we have done in the last 3 years, we are now in 65 cities. If someone had told me 12 years back when we launched Starbucks that in 10 to 12 years, we would be there in 65 cities across, we would be there in a Raipur, a Siliguri, Guwahati, Bhubaneswar, you name it, we are there today. And I would have said, not possible. I think, so that's one. Two is, we have doubled the number of stores. We are already opening nearly 100 stores a year, which is one every 4 days. We want to make it.
Open one today.
I'm sure we did. I think we did. We opened a store yesterday and we opened a store today. So we are opening 2 to 3 stores a week.
Earlier, when you mentioned, it was very much about a slightly affluent audience that was your clientele, right? But as you move into the tier 2, tier 3 cities, is it a challenge bringing that crowd in, or is it now about aspiration for the customers that you're attracting? Like, what is it that you're going after?
So if you frankly ask me, Gauri, what has happened is, and I've always believed in this, even when my other stints and marketing other stuff, that actually there is a lot of aspirational value and money in the smaller towns in India, right? It is just that it is more dispersed and distributed. So if you as a business know how to make money and you have your back end in place and you can go to a smaller town and make money and reach out to those people, there's business out there. So in fact, I think there is more business out there because in terms of the alternatives are more limited. Right. So if I open it in a Bandra, let's say,
it's a saturated market.
I have 15 other people, be it the indies, be it organized, be it, everyone is there. But if I open it in, let's say, a Siliguri, and I have 2 stores there, in Guwahati I have 5 stores, the number of people who can compete or the aspirational value that they can provide is much more limited.
So it's like a first mover advantage.
Advantage, giving people that opportunity. And today everyone is aware of the brand. And I think that is an advantage of having an iconic brand with and makes your job easier. But I think that's the advantage that you bring to the table. If you ask me what is happening is in the older markets, let's say in a Mumbai, for example, the market is evolving. People are, here it is becoming more about specialty coffee. Here it is becoming more about habit. I can see in terms of a ratio of, let's say, espresso versus blended, the ratio is changing. There are more people having, let's say, an Americano today than they were having 10 years back. But in the smaller markets, it is still about the blended, right? It is still about the Frappuccino. It is about the chocolate chip cookie or the Java Frappuccino and stuff like that. And that's the path that people go through. And that's what I think will keep happening.
Why do you think the brands like Barista and CCD didn't survive in India? I mean, I know it could be a multiple reasons, but they were considered like the Starbucks of India.
I don't think it would be right for me to comment in terms of what didn't go right for them. But personally, I have huge respect for CCD. I think what they managed to do and what they created, they opened in 1996. At a point of time, they had 1,400 stores. And in terms of, they were iconic. I think there's a generation of people who, and they provided for that third space, the safety. In India, one of the issues obviously is also if you want to meet up people, where do you go?
Right.
And now obviously there are that many more restaurants and places. But at a point of time, if you wanted a safe, clean, not too expensive place, it was Café Coffee Day. And they were there all over. And I think they did an excellent job. They created the coffee culture, I think, in this country.
So, I mean, I know your field has been marketing for the longest time in, all the sort of previous roles you've had. It's become about the branding more than, and the marketing more than necessarily the product. Because, of course, with scale, product does get impacted. What is your take on that? Do you really think it's about who's got the best sort of branding, or is the consumer really discerning enough to have their favorites?
So, again, if we go back a bit in terms of how the Indian consumer has evolved and coffee drinking in India, I think it has always been, let's say, two parts, right? There's the South, which has always been about coffee drinking, filter coffee, and households are passionate about it. They will have a particular shop that they go and they choose their beans and get it ground and, fresh, and they will not have coffee from anywhere else. So there is a strong culture of fresh coffee, and India is a coffee growing nation. So we have had that in the South. And then there's the rest of the country in some ways, where coffee was, in a sense, an occasional drink, and so that is the knowledge base from which we have started. I think it's evolving. People are getting to understand it better, but it is still primarily an instant coffee and R&G market. I think we are far away from any, there might be a very, very niche audience which has been exposed to, let's say, good coffee and specialty coffee. So I think when today there are a few players who talk about, and there are a few players who are doing a good job in terms of, but I think it's about being consistent, and I think it's important that as we grow the category, we don't compromise on that.
Of course.
And you asked me as to what does Starbucks stand for in a sense earlier. I think that's important for us. Even if, let's say, the consumer today might not be able to discern, I don't think as a brand, I should compromise because of affordability or because I want to expand faster. As I said, we still strongly believe that we need to serve the best coffee, and hence in terms of our sourcing, we only source the top 3% Arabica. I do know that we are maybe double the cost that I pay for my coffee than anyone else in the market when I benchmark. But I don't think I would want to compromise on that, because I think as I grow the category, I think it's important that I take it upon myself the role in terms of ensuring that you're giving the best coffee and don't compromise on that.
Do you still feel that the consumer has enough of an understanding of quality to be choosing where they're getting their coffee from? And it's not, the marketing piece is not what's necessarily drawing them in as much as it is about consistent, good quality.
People will still join for the marketing part of it, a lot of it. And as I said, because you're not used to coffee as a culture, or you don't drink coffee at home and you have not experimented, so you will go in, let's say, a Mumbai where we have been present for 12 years and we are nearly going to hit 100 stores. Yeah, we will this year, hopefully. People are now exposed. People now know, right? And we have seen that happen. We have seen many new competition come in, and obviously people go try, but then they come back. And I've seen this now again and again and again over the last 2 to 3 years as competition has intensified. That gives me the confidence that people are starting to recognize. But it might not happen in a market where you have just opened or it's still not evolved in that sense in terms of exposure to coffee. So it's a journey.
I'm sure. And, speaking of 100 stores in Mumbai, that's, congratulations. That's quite a milestone. And how many of those are in Bandra?
Good question. In Bandra, I think we have now 6 of them.
That's crazy. I mean, I know that I used to, so we just opened in Bandra, as you know. And it was always like, oh, it's that lane with the Starbucks. But then I started realizing there were so many of those lanes with the Starbucks that was a completely useless direction to give anybody. But as someone in the restaurant business, location is what, we've always said. And you have 6 in, one sort of pretty saturated neighborhood. What's the philosophy of you figuring out how many in a neighborhood and what, location to go in? Like, I know like in a city like New York, there's Starbucks pretty much at every block, right? Is that the sort of goalpost?
I think we can do more stores in Bandra. But my business development guys might not agree, but I think we have potential for at least 3-4 more in that catchment. But what we do is, I think a lot of science and some bit of art and gut feel. I think that still works best in business to a large extent, and I'm sure you know that better than I do. And we do a lot of analytics to know what would be the possible transactions that you could possibly do in a catchment. So I have, broadly speaking, that data for the country.
Right.
Okay. And then if let's say, so in Bandra, I have a number. I will then say, okay, competition will open this many stores, and hence I could possibly open this many stores, and how fast I open versus competition. So you do all that mapping and data analytics. But the other important part of this whole equation is obviously the supply side. The demand side, and we know at what rate the category is growing and the affluent is growing. And I think we also know what we are doing to grow that demand. So we factor those things in when we are looking at where we will open and how we will open. But I think a big part, and I think in some ways also the challenge to our growth, is the supply side. Because infrastructure in terms of having the right kind of store, and mainly given that we are two brands, which is hugely ethical, so to ensure that I tick mark all the regulatory and licensing, it takes me, I could open many more stores if I could do what others are doing in some ways in terms of, but it does take time, effort, and to get a store which is completely kosher with the right kind of ambience that you want for the brand, I think that's actually a challenge.
It took us 13 years to open in Bandra.
I'm sure. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But it is.
Yeah,
I mean, you're right. Like finding the right location, and it's. I mean, I feel your pain.
Yeah. So that is what in many ways holds you back, rather than the other side. I think the other side we know quite well now as to what will work, what will not work. Sometimes we take call that we will go in early. We will develop a catchment. There are a lot of places, for example, that we do know that maybe it will take us 12 months, 18 months for us to get the number of people that we need, but we want to be in there because we think that is a future potential, or there are infrastructure coming up in and around. That's how we decide.
I think Alibag was one of those.
That's right. We know that the numbers, and it is a weekend kind of number or, holiday kind of number. And we know that it will take time for the numbers to regularly happen. But I don't think I will, if I let go and someone else takes that location, I won't get another location like that. So sometimes you take those bets.
When you started, my first question to you was, the USP. And I've heard this line saying that, Starbucks is not in the business of coffee serving people, but the business of people serving coffee.
That's right.
And what's your take on this digitization of the F&B experience that is happening across the world today?
So I strongly believe in the philosophy of Starbucks. I still believe that this business is about human connection. Okay, and this business, people want that moment. People want that connection. They are coming not just for the coffee. They are also, even when they come to pick it up and go, that little hi, hello, that smile, that, you want those moments in your life. Otherwise, I think as it is, all of us are so busy and human beings are getting more and more insulated in some ways. So I think you want that human connection. And I think we have a big role to play there. So I think we are in a good place. We are known for that. And I think our partners do a brilliant job. If you ask me what is the strength, that is our strength. Our partners, the way they greet, the smile, and to do it day after day is not an easy job. I worked in a store in Seattle as part of my induction barista training, and I did it again when I was coming back to do this job, and that's compulsory. Every one of us has to work in the store. Yeah, and it is not just a 2 days, 3 days. You have to go through the whole barista program. Right. So all of us do exactly what, and that is when you appreciate and you understand that it is about the back end, the training and the philosophy and how you train someone. that gets reflected. So if you go to any store, and I don't say that we are 100% all the time, but I would say that we are at 80%, 90% in terms of our partners giving you that warmth and that connection and trying to get it right. And I think that's very important. So I think we need to maintain that. Coming to your question in terms of digitization, I think it's inevitable. But I think you need to, in some ways, balance the two out. For example, in some ways, you need to figure out as to how you can create that warmth and connection even in the digital world. If you just do what everyone is doing, you in some ways are also becoming a commodity. Then, why will anyone want to pay for me? Right? You in some ways, when you go and do delivery or when
pure transaction.
Yeah, it's pure transaction, right? There's no emotion involved. And then you're a commodity. You are no more the brand or the value that you bring to the table. So I think it's very important that when we look at digitization, be it your app, be it the way you do delivery, you bring your way to it. And if you can't do that, then you could be in trouble. And that's something that we have been trying to do in terms of a delivery. For example, I think we did a lot of packaging innovation, worked with the partners in terms of how they carry. I'll tell you a simple thing. For example, I can see a bag of Mac Street. In our case, many of our partners, they do it on bikes, right? So they hang it.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, have you seen many of them will just hang it? And so we did simple things. For example, we don't actually have where you can hang it.
Oh, so it's folded.
It's folded, and one of the reasons why it is folded is so that they can't hang. They have to keep it in the back. Again, we spend money, but you have holders to keep your cups. We changed our packaging for delivery so that the heat and the cold can be retained. So there are things that you try to do which differentiates you. We try to write our message on the cup still, which says, it'll still say, "Hi Gauri," with a smile, "Have a great day." But yeah, so you try to do the small things to see as to, but I think we need to evolve there and see as to how we can create more of the emotion and the warmth.
How do you deal with staff turnover?
I've worked all my life in Tata's, and we don't have turnover. One of the things that Tata's are known for is people sticking to it. So when I came and joined this industry, I was told that the turnover at the store, the partner turnover in general, and the QSR industry is upwards of 60%. In many cases, it's 70%. We don't have that big an issue. I think thanks to the Tata brand and in some cases the Starbucks brand, in this country, our turnover rate is maybe half of the industry standard, but it's still very high. I think two things that we have done well, I think, is one, again, gone out of a way to give benefits which are far ahead of the industry. We were the first to give 5-day week.
Okay, I really hope no one in my team is listening to this.
No, but we did. Yeah. And it made a huge difference.
I know. There's a cost.
Yeah, there is a cost to it. It is straight 16%, right? But we took that cost. We were one of the first guys who not only gave insurance to our partners, but when I came in, I realized that we have a fund where we help our partners for, emergencies and stuff like that. And most of the requests came in for the parents. So we now give full insurance to parents. Okay? Again, we don't charge them or anything. We give education money for, if you want to do, a lot of them a class 12 pass. So if you want to do a graduation, post-graduation, it's completely sponsored by us, 100%. You don't need to return the money. So there are a lot of these benefits which I think has helped us. And if you also look back again at Howard's thought process, that was one of the reasons as to why he did Starbucks, because he came from a family and there's no insurance in the US in many of the companies. And he had an issue with his father not getting insurance for a long period of time. So he actually gave all partners insurance. And that is why we call our baristas partners, because they were partners in the company, because they were one of the first guys in the US to be given shares. So that's why everyone is a partner. And no hierarchy. I think people appreciate that. The average age in our stores is 23. So these are things that they like in terms of the culture, where, there's no hierarchy and stuff like that. So I think that is what is helping. I think also some of the causes that we have taken up, we said that 40% of our staff will be women. And I said that in public, and we are there now. But we have now, 30 all-women store. But again, it's a cost, because by labor law, after 7, I have to give them transport, I have to give them security. But, when I was in one of the store, one of the women partners told me that I can't become a store manager because I cannot close stores. I don't know about inventory or about accounts. I know the other parts of the job, but because the store closes at 11 or 12 or 10 or whatever, and I have to go home at 7. So that is when the penny dropped, but it's a cost. But you take that cost, but once you do that, the loyalty and the love that they have is huge. So,
well, I think you're the biggest example of low staff turnover, having been there for 24 years. I mean, that's definitely something to applaud.
And the only other thing I would say is to provide a career path. In a sense, even if you've been it's my own example, again, while I've been in this, larger thing for every 3 years I've changed job, in terms of what I've done. And I think that's what keeps it fresh. That's what gives you the challenge.
Do you see any challenges when it comes to cultural differences?
One of the things we realized was, when people go out, let's say from office, there are 6-7 people. And people say, okay, let's go to a Starbucks. There will be a couple of them who will say, no, we won't go to a Starbucks. I don't drink coffee. I only have chai. Then they will choose to go to somewhere else, right? So we lose that consumer. Similarly, we realize that, let's say there's a couple, they work, husband, wife, they'll come on weekdays with their office colleagues or on their own for their sandwich or their coffee. But on the weekend, they won't come. And when we went, and we were like, why they have small kids. And in India, you don't serve tea and coffee to kids because it's supposed to be an adult drink. So what we have done, and many people don't come because they have older parents. And if they're going out with older parents, Starbucks is not the place, because again, they find it, they don't know what to order, they find it a little difficult. So what we did was we launched a year and a half back filter coffee, ilaichi chai, masala chai. And the reason was not that I want to become a tea or a filter coffee guy. I will still remain at core what I am good at. I will be about coffee, espresso, blended beverages. But I think I wanted to bring in the familiarity so that if someone comes, to begin with, they're comfortable with that. We get these groups coming in. We launched milkshakes, which have become a huge success with kids. And over a period of time, we will then introduce them to, once they come to the store, I'm confident that our partners will then take over, and that comfort and the familiarity and knowledge of coffee will come through. The other area is food.
I was going to ask you, how important is the food program in the entire ecosystem?
Huge, because two things again. As Indians, we love our food, and we actually never have, even at home, when you have your chai in the morning or evening, you will have it with the snacks or at least biscuit, right? Or if someone comes home, when you serve them any beverage, you will not serve them just a beverage. You will serve them some snacks, right? So food as an attachment, unlike the West, for us is important. And hence, we have seen that in our stores. And that is actually where we have localized. So we have now actually gone to the extent of localizing for each city. So for example, last week we launched a Thicha swirl croissant in Maharashtra, while in Calcutta we have a kacha lanka chicken croissant. In Vizag we have a Rayalaseema keema bun. So or in Kerala we have the Malabar egg roast croissant. So, and that has actually helped us in doing two things. One is, obviously, there's interest and curiosity, and people want. So we have made we don't want to compete with the store next door. I can't do a samosa or a vada pav, and I can't do it better than them. So that's not what I'm trying to do. But I want to be in the Western form, what Starbucks looks and feels like, but with Indian flavors. And what it has done is, like from a consumer point of view, it's got the curiosity and made them come and try the food. But our partners love it. And I realized what the partners love sells. It's as simple as that.
That's the thing, that it's something that they would feel
More comfortable and the pride that I'm doing innovation which is local, which is Indian, and that really helps.
So what's your biggest challenge today?
I think couple of them. One, obviously, I spoke about is the real estate, and in terms of getting the right location and the speed at which you get there. I think the second, as we expand and as we move forward, is in terms of people. It is easy as you expand to 65, and we will be in 100 odd cities, I presume, in the next 2 to 3 years. To get all the training material and stuff like that in the vernacular, which is not the tougher part, but we still need to ensure that we do it and do it right. But it is, again, in a sense, the people who come to the store and the partners who work, that is an alien atmosphere. It is not like, let's say, again, in the US, where the person who works in a Starbucks also in regular goes to a Starbucks, right? So there is a familiarity. Here, I need to overcome that barrier, and that is part of the training. But as it becomes more remote and as we expand, it becomes harder to, I don't know whether that's the right word to use, but service versus servility in some senses is very important. And you need to break that, because what you want to create is that connection. You don't want servility, and that takes time and effort. And I think, and that is also where our differentiation comes in. So we need to do it right. And I think that's a challenge as you move forward. So I would say these two.
Same.
It's I think it's across the board.
But this is what I was saying earlier, that it takes time, it takes patience, and we face that as well, right? Where a lot of people, when we opened, said for a standalone restaurant to be almost priced the same as a 5-star hotel, like, where do you get off doing that? And you're too expensive. And there was this big temptation to bring pricing down. But the fact is that in order to deliver that quality, it required a cost of ingredients that was higher. And it may be that it took time for people to understand that that's why we were charging what we were, not just because, and we also have always had an expat chef, because, that's the cuisine, demanded someone who was familiar with that. So I think it takes a lot of, courage and confidence in yourself, self-belief to stand your ground. And I know you're sort of doing it on a much larger sort of, but I do believe that's, and then eventually it becomes aspirational for that audience that you're not able to maybe tap into right now, but eventually they do become. So let's go to marketing. That's your, area of interest, passion. When you were bringing the brand to India, okay, so it's Starbucks. How much really do you need to do when it comes to marketing this brand?
So we didn't do any marketing.
Exactly.
On the day that we first opened, which was 19th October, I still remember, 2012, we had an evening function kind of thing at that Harniman Circle, the place, and Mr. Tata, Howard, everyone opened the store. So we were not planning to sell. The next day at 7 or 8, the store was supposed to open for public. But by 9 o'clock at night, at 9 p.m., we already had 500 people who had queued up. So we didn't have an option but to start serving, to start selling. And we did that. And for the next week, 10, 15 days, we had continuous queues. So,
today, and I'm sure you're seeing this as a consumer as well, that collaborations are the sort of word of the day, decade, whatever. You've done successful collaborations with the likes of Sabyasachi and Manish Malhotra. What was the sort of thought process behind this, and how have you seen this, play out for the brand?
So it worked brilliantly for us, and I think for them. in terms of, I think Sabyasachi, before he did this, and I've been in conversations with him pre and post, he was very, very elitist, with certain kind of look, feel, and very Indian in terms of, but I think this gave him, that awareness amongst an audience which he never reached out. Yeah, and I think he actually got a much younger, newer audience in that sense, which...
Or an audience that may not sort of be his clientele was aware, and now they had something.
That's right.
Yeah.
From a business point of view, it sold out much faster than we thought it would, and there was great demand. And it helped us because in some ways, when you're trying to create this empathy and in some ways try to ingrain yourself into the community and the Indianness, I think things like this help us.
So let's talk about the Starbucks loyalty program, because I really think that is the gold standard for F&B. What is it that works for this? And how has the adoption been in India?
So the adoption in India has been phenomenal. Okay, we actually complete 10 years. We have nearly 4 million members who are members of the program right now. Actually, the new member joining has accelerated tremendously. I think our current rate is nearly 58 to 60,000 every month of new members who are joining. And
where do you see more of this happening?
It's happening everywhere, across stores, across all the 440 stores. And I think in some ways it's now become like a competition amongst partners as to how more people. We obviously measure our tender percentage in terms of how many people use the card in terms of, and our tender percentage is upwards of 20%. You obviously get benefits and there is a sense of pride in terms of, and you feel good. Everyone likes freebie. So I think more than the quantum of the freebie, I think it's about people feeling important. And I think it's about people feeling recognized in a place which is premium and aspirational. I think that is what makes the loyalty program a bigger success. I think a lot of us get a little thing by the freebies. I think it's not the freebies.
You think we're actually tapping into a different emotion?
That's absolutely correct. I very seriously believe that this is base human about recognition. And recognition in a place which is aspirational and premium. Which is why, let's say, when Jet, if you remember when Jet privilege cards used to be there in India, they used to be a big thing. If you were a gold or a platinum, because you could check in earlier.
Yeah.
So people, it was in a sense a recognition more than the perks about you being allowed into the lounge or stuff like that. I think it's about the recognition and I think that's what works in the, and I'll tell you, we used to have the physical card, the gold card. Okay, and then we didn't want to, in some ways it is again plastic and we got rid of, we don't do.
And everyone's on their phone.
Right, and in the app. But the number of people who have complained, saying...
Because it was a physical...
it was just again a thing of getting recognized, right? That you could take your card out and you felt good about it. You got recognized instantly. Now, it's only the partner who sees that you are a gold member and that recognition is then limited.
Interesting. And of course, the UI, UX is
yes, and you need to obviously get the basic hygiene factors right.
Are you now incorporating AI into...
We have actually done a lot. So, for example, if you have the app, we have, and that is also connecting it to what I was telling you earlier. How can you bring in the emotions? And I think AI is helping us to do that. So, you bring in a bit of personalization to the app. And we're using the app much more also in terms of education. So, we have started what we call as the Master Brewer program in our stores, and you can enroll and you get a certification. There are 3 levels. So that's also...
This is open to consumers.
Anyone. It's for the consumers. It's for the consumers. It's very it's equivalent to a Coffee Master program, simplified. But yeah, because we realize that there is a part of people who want to learn more, and it also helps us to establish our credentials.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you do it already, but I know latte art is a very popular thing.
They did.
That,
So part of the part of the program, as you advance, part of it is also about latte art.
can you do any latte art?
I am quite bad at it, but I can, just about.
So on that note, I'm going to move to some lighter, more fun questions. Has your name ever been misspelled on a Starbucks cup?
I'm sure it has.
Come on. What's the craziest thing you've heard someone order with all the modifications and customization?
I remember the first store in Delhi, and which was in Connaught Place. People used to come and say, when they wanted the whipped cream in the Java chip frappuccino, they used to say, "Wo extra malai dena mere." Yeah, I thought that's the craziest I've heard.
If you could open a Starbucks anywhere in India, at any location, what would that be?
Actually, where I would open, so I trek, and one of the places where when you go to the trek in the Everest, if you have ever gone, have you done the Everest base camp?
I've done Gokyuri. Which
You've done, yeah, I've also done Gokyuri. So you go to Lukla, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as you get out of Lukla on the left-hand side, there is a Starbucks. Yeah, you didn't see?
No, I went in 95, so to be fair.
Okay,
it was
so I think it's been there now for 20 years. It looks exactly like a Starbucks, okay? It is
That
actually...
is crazy.
Yes. But so when I went the first time, I went to Gokyuri in 2012. And I was like, is this actually a Starbucks? And obviously I knew it was fake. That is where I would actually like a real Starbucks. They do great business. They do great business. And the pastries are not bad at all, I must say.
That's crazy. That must be a big issue for you guys.
Yes,
right?
it is. We keep filing cases, but yeah.
Wow, I thought you were going to say Namche Bazaar, but yeah.
I think that's such a lovely place.
Yeah, it is. I remember.
And
it
someone
was a bit of a trek, but
yeah. And someone has already created the market.
Yeah. Fair point. Would you correct someone if you heard them say chai tea latte?
I don't. I cringe with him, and I would love to, but I think, I love my job more. So
How many cups of coffee in a day?
I'm trying to control, so 3 right now.
Wow, that's quite a bit. And what do you do when the caffeine wears off? Or does that not happen?
So I think it doesn't. So I'm now under control. I don't drink after 3:34, but yeah.
That's me. I'm not going to ask you if the 3-cup size thing is true because I'm sure it's not.
It's not.
But did you ever test it?
I did. I did, and because I first when I saw it, I saw the reel, and I called up my ops head. I still remember, and I said, "Adit, is this true?" He said, "Yes." He was like, first you're bugging me at whatever time, and you're asking me a stupid question, but I didn't believe him. I went back the next day, and I actually did it in a surreptitious manner because I didn't want to be seen to be ignorant. But no, it doesn't.
I'm sure. So where's the next marathon?
New York.
Wow.
I'm doing it in November. So I'm trying to complete the world majors. So 6 of them.
Which ones are those?
So there's 6 of them. Tokyo, Berlin, London, New York, Boston, Chicago. So this will be my 3rd.
And what's your goal time?
3 hours, 50 minutes.
Wow. Well, good luck, and
thank you.
This has been really fun and very insightful, and I wish you all the best with all the openings that you have.
Thank you so much. It was lovely chatting with you.